Sometimes the people we trust most become the very ones we need protection from. The gavel came down 3 times, and Judge Morrison looked directly at me with that expression I'd come to know well over the past 6 months of custody hearings. "Mr. Thompson, I notice your son Trevor isn't present today. This is the 3rd time he's missed a scheduled appearance." I felt my chest tight. This was it, the moment I'd been dreading and preparing for in equal measure. My wife Linda sat across the courtroom with her attorney, wearing that same smug expression she'd perfected during our marriage, the one that said she always knew something I didn't. "Your Honor," I said, standing slowly, "there's something the court needs to hear regarding my son's absence." Linda's attorney immediately objected. "Your Honor, if Mr. Thompson has an excuse for his son's continued absence, it should have been submitted in writing prior to today's hearing." Judge Morrison raised his hand. "I'll allow it, Mr. Thompson, but this better be substantial." I reached into my briefcase and pulled out my phone, hands trembling slightly. 6 months ago, if someone had told me I'd be standing in a courtroom about to play a recording of my own wife, I would have laughed. But divorce has a way of showing you who people really are underneath the masks they wear. "Your Honor, 3 days ago I received a call from Trevor. He was crying, which isn't like him. He's 14 and tries to act tough most of the time." I paused, looking directly at Linda. Her face had gone pale. "He told me his mother had threatened him about coming to court today." "Objection." Linda's attorney shot up. "This is hearsay, Your Honor." "It would be hearsay," I replied, "if I didn't have it recorded." The silence in that courtroom was deafening. You could hear the air conditioning humming, someone's stomach growling in the gallery. Even the scratch of the court reporter's fingers on her machine seemed amplified. Judge Morrison leaned forward. "You're telling me you have a recording of the alleged threat?" "Yes, Your Honor. With the court's permission, I'd like to play it." "Let me back up and explain how we got here. Linda and I were married for 16 years. On the surface, we looked like the perfect family. Nice house in the suburbs, successful careers. I'm an accountant, she's a real estate agent, and Trevor, our son who means everything to me. The problem started about 2 years ago when Linda began working late more often. She'd come home with stories about difficult clients, weekend showings, evening meetings. I trusted her completely. That was my mistake. I found out about the affair the way most people do, by accident. She'd left her phone on the kitchen counter and it kept buzzing. When I glanced at it, there were text messages from someone named Kevin saying things that definitely weren't about real estate. The divorce proceedings started 8 months ago, and from day one Linda made it clear she intended to get full custody of Trevor. Not because she was particularly maternal, she'd always been more focused on her career than parenting, but because she knew it was the one thing that would hurt me most. Linda's strategy became obvious quickly. She painted me as an absent father, claiming I worked too much and was emotionally unavailable. Her attorney argued that Trevor would be better served living with his mother full-time, with me getting supervised visitation every other weekend. It was complete nonsense. I'd been to every single one of Trevor's baseball games, helped with homework every night, and he'd always come to me when he had problems. But Linda was good at manipulating situations, and she had expensive lawyers. The first red flag was when Trevor started making excuses about coming to the custody hearings. Initially, I thought he was just uncomfortable with the whole situation. Divorce is hard on kids, and I figured he didn't want to be put in the middle, but then I noticed changes in his behavior. He became withdrawn when he stayed at Linda's house. When I'd pick him up for my weekends, he seemed anxious, looking over his shoulder like he was afraid of getting in trouble for something. 3 weeks ago, he finally opened up to me. We were throwing a football in my backyard when he suddenly stopped and said, "Dad, I don't want to live with Mom." I was careful not to lead him. "Why not, buddy? She's different now. She gets angry all the time and she says things." He trailed off, looking uncomfortable. "What kind of things?" "About you, about the divorce. She says if I don't help her win custody, she'll make sure I never see you again." My blood ran cold, but I kept my voice steady. "Trevor, that's not how custody works. No matter what happens, I'll always be your father." "But what if she's right? What if the judge believes her and I have to live with her all the time?" That's when I made the decision that led us to today's courtroom moment. I told Trevor that if his mother ever said anything like that again, he should call me immediately and leave the phone on speaker so I could hear what was happening. I never expected it to happen so quickly. The call came last Tuesday evening. Trevor's voice was shaky when he said, "Dad, she's doing it again." "Put me on speaker and set the phone down, but stay close enough that I can hear," I whispered. What I heard next made my hands shake with rage. Linda's voice was sharp and threatening. "Trevor, I'm only going to say this once more. That custody hearing on Friday is the most important one yet. If you show up and tell that judge you want to live with your father, I will make your life miserable. Do you understand me?" Trevor's voice was small. "But Mom, I miss Dad when I'm here. Can't I just tell the truth?" "The truth?" Linda's laugh was bitter. "The truth is your father is trying to take you away from me out of spite. He doesn't really want you. He just wants to hurt me. If you help him do that by going to court and saying you prefer him, I'll have no choice but to send you to military school." "Is that what you want? Military school?" Trevor sounded terrified. "That's right. There's one in Arizona where troubled teens go when their parents can't handle them anymore. Keep pushing me and you'll find out exactly what it's like to be away from both of us." I wanted to drive over there and protect my son immediately, but I knew this recording was evidence I needed. I stayed on the line as Linda continued her threats for another 2 minutes, making it clear that Trevor's attendance at Friday's hearing would determine his immediate future. When the call ended, I drove straight to my attorney's office, even though it was nearly 9 p.m. We listened to the recording together, and he confirmed what I already knew. Linda had crossed a line that family court judges don't tolerate. Now standing in that courtroom, Judge Morrison was waiting to hear what I'd recorded. "Play the recording, Mr. Thompson," he said. I connected my phone to the courtroom's sound system and Linda's voice filled the room. Every word, every threat, every manipulation tactic was crystal clear through the speakers. As the recording played, I watched Linda's face transform from smug confidence to growing horror. Her attorney was frantically taking notes, probably trying to figure out damage control. But there was no controlling this damage. When it finished, Judge Morrison sat back in his chair and was quiet for a long moment. "Mrs. Thompson," he finally said, "do you recognize your voice on that recording?" Linda's attorney whispered something to her, but she was too rattled to stay quiet. "Your Honor, I was just trying to prepare him for stop talking," her attorney hissed, but Judge Morrison had heard enough. "Mrs. Thompson, in 22 years on this bench, I've heard many things, but threatening to send a child to military school for telling the truth in my courtroom is not something I tolerate." He turned to me. "Mr. Thompson, given this evidence of parental alienation and what amounts to witness intimidation involving a minor, I'm immediately granting you temporary full custody pending a full investigation." The sound Linda made was somewhere between a gasp and a sob. "Furthermore," Judge Morrison continued, "Mrs. Thompson's visitation will be supervised until she completes court-ordered counseling and demonstrates that she can interact with her son without manipulation or threats." Linda's attorney was trying to say something about appeals and emergency stays, but Judge Morrison wasn't finished. "I want to be very clear about something," he said, looking directly at Linda. "Children are not pawns in divorce proceedings. They are not weapons to be used against former spouses. When you threaten a child to manipulate court proceedings, you damage not only your relationship with that child but your credibility with this court." As we left the courthouse that day, Trevor was waiting for me in the hallway with my sister, who'd been watching him during the hearing. When he saw my face, he knew immediately what had happened. "Dad," he said quietly, "you're coming home with me, son, for good this time." The relief on his face broke my heart and filled it at the same time. That was 6 months ago. Today, Trevor is thriving. His grades are up, he's back to his old self, and most importantly, he feels safe expressing his feelings without fear of manipulation or threats. Linda completed her court-ordered counseling and now sees Trevor every other weekend with supervised visits. She's never again tried to manipulate him or use him as a weapon in our ongoing divorce proceedings. I learned something important through this experience. Sometimes protecting your children means being willing to expose painful truths, even when those truths are about someone you once loved. Trevor needed to know that his voice mattered, that telling the truth wouldn't result in punishment, and that his father would always fight to keep him safe. The recording I played in court that day wasn't just evidence of Linda's manipulation. It was proof that children deserve better than being caught in the crossfire of adult anger and resentment. Looking back, I realized that the moment Judge Morrison asked why Trevor wasn't in court, Linda's custody case was already over. She'd lost it the moment she chose threats over trust, manipulation over maternal love. Sometimes justice comes from unexpected places. In our case, it came from a 14-year-old boy who was brave enough to call his father when he needed protection, and a recording that revealed the truth about what happens when divorce brings out the worst in people. Trevor is safe now, and that's all that matters. The rest is just paperwork. Remember to like this video if you believe children should never be used as weapons in divorce proceedings, and subscribe for more stories about standing up for what's right, even when it's difficult.